Okay, that's a dark pit back there. Hell with it. Okay, this is a quick video. Probably not. January 28th, 2020. I'm going to do a wrap up on the cancer ward series simply because I don't have cancer any longer. It's not an issue. The things I'm doing are going to preclude it reoccurring with any luck and with foreknowledge. So I won't be putting a lot of effort into that series anymore, so I'm going to just wrap it up and go into other stuff. This is 2 for Tuesday, because I'm going to do this video and then I'm going to do another video on a separate subject, all the woo-woo shit. This video is essentially to talk about health and how you need to think about it as we go forward here over this next decade, or really up to 2041 is the officialdom idea of when the ice age begins relative to all these cycles lining up, right? We might be freezing our asses off 10 years earlier, so we might think of it as the ice age starting in 2030, but officialdom says, because of the, the academics, because of all these cycles lining up, that the solar cycles, et cetera, will induce a truly grand solar minimum reduction in temperature on the Earth by 2041. Now, of course, we also hear about the assholes in Congress funding Plan B, which is to pump more chemtrails up there to try and cool the planet, because they think our planet is heating up. It's not the case. Anyway, separate issues. Okay, so I had cancer. I've had it a couple of times, 3 times that I know of, or that I suspect, okay? I've had 2 confirmed allopathic diagnoses of cancer. One was a big giant lump, the other was a big area on my head. I've also had a full-on radical mastectomy, but there was never any pathology done. Great guys there. And I was so out of it from all of that, I didn't follow up, and my brother had just died. It was a terrible time, so I didn't bother with those things. So, but it was probably, as suspected, early form of breast cancer. The reason I'm getting all the cancers, or had gotten all the cancers, was because I worked in the chemical industries when I was a kid. It was the only work I could find. It was dirty, dangerous. The closed environment suits weren't closed. They never really kept that crap out of you, and you absorb it, and it causes issues. I don't do that anymore, so I'm not likely to have any more formative, causative trigger events. Okay, cancer is a metabolic disease. It's not a virus. It's not genetic. It's not evil demons. It's not being cursed by God. None of those. You can see it any way you want. You can believe it to be any of those should you choose, but it is not. It is a metabolic disease that runs by sugar, is 100% dependent on sugar, and even so, finally the academics have keyed into this, and they're now using sugar to kill this stuff, in a sense, right? What they do is they take a chemical and they bond it to sugar because they know the cancer just can't live without the sugar, and it'll take up that chemical, and the theory is that chemical will then kill the cancer. Okay, that's a fragile approach to this in my way of thinking, right? Just like colloidal silver is a fragile approach to the coronavirus. All right, everybody's going to get really pissed, but here's what I'll explain why it's fragile. Colloidal silver is a fragile approach to the coronavirus, or any other virus, at the same level as all of the other allopathic approaches that rely on trying to dose the disease, okay? So you get a tickle in your nose. You go and you snort some colloidal silver. Tickle goes away. Presumably the bacteria, the virus, whatever it was that had irritated the little villi in your nose, the little hairs, and got trapped on it and signaled to some part of your snout, oh, I got an itch, I must have caught a big baddie there. Okay, and then you flush it all out with colloidal silver, and you're all good. Now the problem is that only works in that instant, okay? Colloidal silver, by its very nature, is absorbed by the body, and as it is absorbed, it is neutralized. All right, it does its work on your own skin and becomes neutralized even if there's no bacteria to kill, even if there's no viruses to kill there, because it becomes involved in your body chemistry and is no longer colloidal silver in an active form. Might be a silver oxide, might be a silver nitrate. It's bonded and stuff happens in your skin when you apply it topically, so it works in that instant, but you have no skin protection 15 minutes later from that colloidal silver. It's that rapid, okay? As it is absorbed and interacts with your skin, it is neutralized. That's the function of how it should work within the body. This is why you would have to drink gallons of the shit to get it down far enough into your gut for it to do anything to a gut biome in a positive way, and then it will not do anything in a gut biome in a positive way at volume. You can't take the stuff in volume because you will quite literally kill off major portions of the good bacteria inside your gut, because colloidal silver is not biome element specific, right? Anything that's available to be glommed onto the silver molecule as part of the process of oxidization or turning into nitrate is going to become involved in whether it's a good bacteria or a bad bacteria. So colloidal silver is a fragile approach. If you were in an airplane and you were spraying your snout, you thought you had coronavirus people around you, and you sprayed your snout all the time with aerosolized colloidal silver, it would work in that instant. But if you got off the airplane and you breathe a sigh of relief and go, oh, phew, 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 I'm safe, and then you're walking through the airport, you get into the taxi, and then you pick it up in the taxi. If you're not spraying the colloidal silver, then you're not going to get any protection. So it doesn't work well that way. It's good in the moment. So if I were to find myself knowingly exposed to something, I might indeed decide to dose with colloidal silver. But I wouldn't count on it going very far past my esophagus in terms of being active and effective. So it's not going to protect me by plumping up my tissues and filling them full of silver or anything. It doesn't work that way. This is why I really bitch about, this is why number 2 video. We'll get into that in the number 2 video. Okay, so colloidal silver is fragile. Hand wipes in hospitals are fragile. They're fragile in a different way. And we actually have academics in Sweden who studied the thing over a number of years and determined that hand wipes in hospital and those little spray dispenser things where you put on that solution that's a gel with alcohol and crap in it. It doesn't matter what is in that solution. The alcohol base is what's causing the problems. These things turned out to be less effective in reducing bacterial and virus exposures than merely taking all of the stainless steel door handles out and all of the stainless steel handrails around the halls and replacing them with copper. When one hospital did that as a test, they discovered that every time you touched a copper door handle, you got a little tiny micro charge because of the nature of copper in holding static electricity and conducting it over to your flesh. In the process of touching you with that microcharge, any kind of bacterial biome interchange that's going on in touching that, the bacteria is reduced, it's killed. Plus, copper is a bactericide and a viral side by its very nature. So if you got bacteria or virus on your hand and you grab a copper door handle, you leave the bacteria and virus there, and it dies because it's being killed by being put on a poisoned copper plate that we just happen to use as a door handle. And so it was like, duh, the hospitals in Sweden said, oh, and there's a downside. There's a huge downside to hand wipes in hospitals. The alcohol dries out your flesh, and as they think it should, and then the gel does not replace any of that necessary oil with what they think of as moisture, which are really emulsifiers and with oils that can't be absorbed. So what happens is the alcohol dries out your hands and it cracks and you get infections, much more prone to get a bacterial infection if you're continually using these hand wipey things or the gel stuff in hospitals than if you avoid all of that and wash with a mild soap and water as is needed and then have copper to touch, okay? So, so hand wipes in hospital, they're fragile because you think they're doing you some good. They're doing some good in that instance, but they have a long-term consequence, which, by the way, continual dosing of alcohol has been associated with, and formaldehyde is in some of those damn solutions, has been associated with cancer, skin cancers, in the funeral home industry for 60 plus years. In the embalming, okay, because of the stress, even with rubber gloves and the whole thing, not even contact exposure, but atmospheric exposure is enough to cause problems. I know this kind of shit because I used to write software for insurance companies, and back in the day when all these insurance companies were bringing their stuff online, I happened to work for a company that did. I moved over from an escrow business and where I wrote escrow software, and I wrote software for actuarial tables. So I had to read this stuff to figure out what all the patterns were and how to make it all computer friendly, so to speak, right? To translate it from these charts and graphs and their formulae into computers and software. And so I became familiar with a lot of this stuff, which, you know, actually has helped over time. So anyway, allopaths are fragile, okay? Allopaths are fragile in the same way that both colloidal silver and hand wipes are fragile because of the thing of the moment. I'm not saying don't go to doctors. If I had a gash or something, I'd certainly go get sewn up. You know, that's a skill. I need a surgeon. I need somebody who's not an alcoholic, who has some grasp of what's going on and isn't going to fill me full of his own infections in doing the surgery. But other than that, the risk is relatively minimal that way because the allopaths know how to keep you alive during the surgery. But they're not very good at medicine. Okay, medicine is healing, is allowing the body to heal itself and giving the body what it needs, system support, in order to heal. Okay, medicine and system support are anti-fragile. Get to that in a minute. Allopaths are fragile because they give you harsh chemicals intending to kill something inside of you, and they think leave the rest of you alone. Doesn't work that way because they're so ignorant, and they even acknowledge their ignorance because they're continually changing their protocols over time as new studies come on in that say, oh, we better not do that. You know, look how many people died when we did that shit. So allopaths are fragile. Yeah, you need them. These days, if you were in a situation where you thought you were exposed to a coronavirus, it isn't going to do you much good to go to an allopath because there's not much they can do for you. Because they need to treat the thing in you of the moment. That's why I fired the oncologist. Okay, I got so far into my cancer recovery, so I was with an oncologist from say September of 2018 until I canned his ass in January of 2019. So you know, I gave him a shot. You know, I was disgusted with him right off, but I gave him that shot because there really wasn't much else, and you're thrashing around, and your body's weak, and your mind's all fucked up from the surgery, the anesthesia, amnesia. But in any event, the oncologist was fired because his approach was, I can't treat it if I can't see it. And so I'm sitting here thinking, so you mean what you're saying explicitly is that you can't help me with nascent cancer. You need to wait till it's a big fucking tumor and you can actually see it, regardless of how big the tumor is, before you can get in there and do something. That means that basically an oncologist is just somebody there to monitor you until they can get a surgeon involved. You know, they don't do you any good. If they're dosing you with chemicals, they're trying to kill something in you and hope to God that you're not going to get wiped out by that same chemical. And so far, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of evidence that they're good at that shit. There's a lot of anti-cancer stuff, right? Tons of it. I was amazed when I got into it. It's like every time you turn around, you find out that this substance or that substance or this other thing has anti-cancer properties. But most of these, I would say the vast majority of them, and I went all the way back. I got involved with reading the traditional Chinese medicine manuals that go back thousands of years from the Yellow Emperor forward. That was the Yellow Emperor conducted the longest continuous cancer study in the human history. And it went over 200 years. And they learned a whole lot of stuff, all of which is ignored by the allopaths, or currently being rediscovered by the allopaths. Anyway, so colloidal silver is fragile. It's only good in the moment. It is good in the moment. It's only good topically. It's not systemic. Hand wipes are fragile. They're only good in that moment, and they damage you long term. Allopaths damage you long term by their thinking. Only use them as an access into the pharmacy system if you need it, or expert opinion, but always double check what they say. Most of these fuckers don't know. And also bear in mind, a couple of rules with allopaths. Only one person graduates top in the class. Everybody else is down. One thing you may want to ask your oncologist or your doctor, which I asked my oncologist, where did you graduate in your class? And it's like, holy fuck. He was in the bottom 25 percentile. But I'm living out in shit, in rural county, so shit rolls downhill and allopaths crawl uphill. So they just don't stick around here. If they're any good at all, they get bigger bucks going further and further in towards the metropolis. But anyway, so if somebody's got to graduate in the middle of the damn class, be advised, right? And then allopaths knowledge stops the minute that they get out of class. Not even graduation, because many of them stop really gaining any knowledge in that last year anyway. And they don't know nutrition, and they don't know the human body. They know how to slice and dice it, and that's all, because allopaths came up, by the way, the whole allopathic medicine comes up from war, from surgeons doing, patching people together. So that's their viewpoint of how the human body works. All right, so seed oils, all right? All seed oils are drying to your system. They extract fats. You think of them as a fat, they're sort of a fat, but they're not really insofar as your body is concerned, okay? So when I was a vegetarian for 35 years. In that period of time, I was a vegan for 4 years. And during that period of being a vegan, I had the worst possible sinus headaches you can imagine. Now, I was a vegetarian, yes, because of a certain ethos, but also because I was forced that way by the undiagnosed cancer in me. I had one of these long-term cancers that grows for over 30 fucking years, and usually they're not found, and usually you die. And I went all the way that period, and I died, and then I refused to take it and came back on that last day. Friday the 13th, my lucky day. Anyway, so I know from personal experience as a vegetarian for 35 years that seed oils are drying to your sinuses. And I know that once I stopped and didn't have to deal with the cancer anymore, and I could go back to acceptable fats, and I'm using clarified butter in all my cooking, instant relief from all my sinus headaches, my sinuses recovered, my skin's all plump again, because, see, it basically dries out your entire skin structure using seed oils. And you get dry, flaky skin, you get cracks on the elbow, you get cracks on your feet, where you need this excess amount of fats in the skin because of the type of damage you're going to have to do to that area of the skin. It's like our bodies are designed a specific way, or however you want to think about it, have emerged a specific way for specific purposes here, right? And so you need these extra fats in your system, and seed oils don't give them to you. My bitch at the moment is that seed oils are extremely drying to the sinuses, and you need your sinuses to prevent viral infections. Why? Because your sinuses have all these little hairs in there, as I said earlier, that capture the viruses and the bacteria as you suck them up in the wind. And then once they capture them, the little hair, makes a little vibration, and that's a signaling mechanism that triggers a signaling molecule that triggers the ultimately all the way down into the thymus in your body, and then back up into the system again to kill the bacteria or kill the virus. And that's how your, in an extremely crude fashion, that's how your immune system works, right? Cartoon fashion. But the point being that if your skin is dry and your sinuses are dry, your hairs aren't going to be able to signal. They're going to be dry too, because these little villi are extremely small. And so when they capture things, the vibration aspect is entirely dependent on how moist they are. So you could have tons of good hairs in your nose, capture all kinds of bacteria and virus, and still die of coronavirus because you don't have enough moisture in your skin, or actually you don't have enough fats in your skin, not oils, but fats, to allow this process to work effectively. Plus, fats are used in the actual destruction of the viruses and the bacteria. They're a necessary part of your immune system, and are controlled through the thymus and so forth, right? And the consumption of fat, that is to say eating fat, in no way makes you fat. You can eat as much fat as you want. It's carbs that make you fat, 100% guaranteed. I'm on basically a carnivore diet and losing fat like mad. And finally starting to get at some of the fat under my eyes that was a residual of the cancer. When you have cancer, you eat lots of sugar. You have to eat sugar in order for that cancer not to continually rebel on you and cause you pain. And you pack on fat all over any place your body can do it during that process. So in the last year that I was dying of the cancer, my body weight didn't change, but I lost all kinds of muscle mass and was unaware of it because I was the cancer and the vast consumption of carbs was causing me to gain fat weight as the muscle mass went away. And then in the last couple of weeks of the cancer, when I was just a shaking wreck, all of a sudden, within like 3 weeks, I lost 20 plus pounds as everything just kind of broke apart. It was probably a little longer than that. Maybe it was a little over a month. The last 9 days, I lost 11 pounds. So, so it's a masking process. And then when I had the surgery and a month or two later, my mind starts coming back. I examined my body and I realized that my muscles had wasted away, just thoroughly wasted away in the process of the past 3, probably 4 years of the cancer directing everything for me. So anyway, so you have to be cognizant, aware of all of these various different factors as you go forward. And so being a vegan, I can go into why that's not good for the planet. I'm not going to do it. We can debate some other vegans at some other time because I was a vegan for 4 years. So, hey, fuckers, I've been there. Only I'm not political about it, right? I'm not trying to force that kind of shit on you. But a vegan, by its very nature, dries you out, okay? You don't have the kinds of fats you get from eating meats. And so you have a different kind of oil in you. Also, vegans, by the way, think they're being very healthy, but a lot of the vitamins are not bioavailable through grains and stuff because of the form in which they're locked up. Okay, so being a vegan is fragile within the coronavirus, within a pandemic, within any kind of stuff. And we'll talk about coronavirus very briefly in a second. Okay, so vaccines for the coronavirus, for any fucking thing, are fragile, okay? Yes, they indeed may work. The introduction, in order to build up antibodies of the critter, is actually homeopathy. Okay, so anytime someone says, take a vaccine, you're going to say, what? Are you a homeopath? Because what they're saying is it's extremely dilute, you put it in there and your body reacts to it, just like the German fellow with homeopathy. So, the Allopaths beat out all the other kinds of medicine, and they're always bitching at them, but look at how many of the other kinds of medicine they actually end up adopting. So a vaccine is a reasonably good idea for some specific illnesses, for some specific people. It is not a good idea as a general panacea for all people because of the vaccination of the herd approach that causes the herd to become generally weaker because the nature of vaccines is such that it is fragile. It only does stuff of the moment. And if you fuck around and you put shit in that vaccine that then cause you long-term damage, then you're not only getting a brief momentary pop at the expense of long-term degradation. The reason I don't like modern vaccines is because of the crap they put in them. And so I won't have it. No, I'd rather take a syringe of straight stuff out of piggery and inject that than these chemical combinations within vaccines, especially for the vaccines that are of the moment and specific, because they make one fragile. All right, so now on the other side, here's the things you can do, okay? So you can make yourself anti-fragile. You just have to have a different mental approach to this. The anti-fragile person recognizes that they need systemic support. Unlike David Wilcock, who refuses to take vitamins because he's afraid of becoming addicted to them, somebody who's anti-fragile knows they need system support and recognizes that in this time, we can't be sure unless we take extra steps that we're getting the base level of material that our body needs to meet the challenges that we face every day. So an anti-fragile person with system support says to himself, what is the minimum required? What is the optimal level for me? And how do I achieve that? Okay. And so the first thing you do is you go through and you look at the minimum daily requirements and you see all the stuff that you might need. And then you realize that the minimum daily requirements are for a generalized overview of the population and do not reflect me. They don't have a clue as to what my fucking body is when they make up these RDAs. So I have different needs entirely. But I know I need these various different elements that have been identified within the RDA structure. I just don't listen to them about any of the amounts or where I'm going to get them. So I've come up with this solution, a system, okay? And the system is called BDECK, all right? We're going to BDECK ourselves with lots of vitamins. And this relates entirely to vitamins. Vitamins, hang on. Vitamins are vita minerals, basically minerals. There's a mineral element in a lot of them, but they're vital elements, life elements that you don't make in your body or don't make adequate amounts. So we've altered the USA understanding of vitamins to allow for those elements that we do make some of, but our ability to make them over time decreases, and so they become more of a vitamin later in life than when we're young, right? And so there's various different kinds of vitamins. And I didn't put all of them in here, right? You can actually do this, a BDECK, but it got a little bit complicated to do it that way. But these are vitamins, but there's this interesting way to think about these vitamins in this particular arrangement, okay? Especially when you're looking at the idea of dealing with elements of the moment, momentary fears of, pandemic or health issues or whatever, right? And so here is the way that you want to think about these things. This is vitamin K over here, and we look at these things from longer term into shorter term effects going this way. Okay, so K is a very great level system support for bones, for all different kinds of signaling systems and so on. You don't need a ton of it, but you need it, okay? And you need to get it from a good bioavailable source. And it's usually bound with D3 because they're symbiotic and they do things together. You'll find that D3, the D molecule or the D vitamins are performing as signaling molecules for bunches of other things, okay? And they're very key in lots of different aspects of your body, especially in reacting to pathogens, attacks by viruses and stuff. So K, but here's the real kicker, all right? K is the kicker, but C is the absolute center. Okay, you've got to have enough C in you for any of these others to be really effective. If you don't have enough C vitamin in you, none of the others are going to aid you in any significant amount because C is so essential all the way through in all these other systems. And it acts on its own as an antioxidant, as its own form of signaling molecule, as part of your gut system. It actually helps form some of the intercellular cement with hyaluronic acid. So there's all different kinds of things that C does for you. So C is at the center. You get your C levels up, and then you worry about all the others. It is said that C should be consumed at the rate of 30 milligrams per kilogram of body weight, okay? So for me, just to make sure that, but you have to understand something. Unless, okay, so liposomal is absorbed at the rate of 80%. So liposomal vitamin C gets absorbed at the rate of 80%, so that's what you need. You can get it liquid, stay away from the soy-based ones. You can get it capsule, okay? Also something else down here that is deadly is soy. Don't ever fuck around with soy. It destroys the brain, the soy oil, over time, and all different, and it compounds many of the other problems you get with seed oils. Okay, so liposomal vitamin C gets absorbed at 80%. All of the others, you can only figure 20%. So if you're dealing with just some regular old ascorbic acid, you're going to have to take enough. You're going to have to take about 5 times what you need, so you'll be flushing your bowels out because that level is a laxative. If you ever need a laxative, vitamin C is the route to go. It's extremely gentle. It doesn't hurt anything. It repairs your gut as it does it. And it doesn't cause any water displacement problems or any of that kind of stuff, just to let you know. Because what you do is you take vitamin C to saturate yourself, you take it to the level that it causes diarrhea. Over the course of a couple of days, you gradually increase how much you're taking, and then you know you've flushed your system with vitamin C at that level. You've reached bowel tolerance. From then on, you can ratchet down to whatever you really need. Okay, so you get your C levels set, and in the process of getting C, you eat a good diet that has bone broth in it or meat or something to get vitamin K, or take a vitamin K and D3 supplement, and that's the base on which you build. Those are like the foundation of your deck here. We're going to BDECK you with vitamins, and we're going to BDECK you with vitamins at an optimal level. So then you can get E, and E is good for your veins, for your arteries, for all of the signaling mechanisms that allow cross blood lymph system interactions. It's good for the skin, it's good for the brain, all different kinds of stuff. It's essential, you know, it's good for the genitals, the reproduction system, good for the gut, for the liver, and it's an essential requirement, and you can take a lot more of it. Now, here's the thing. I used to have some very large varicose veins. I tripled my vitamin E take for 4 months, and varicose veins went away. Just not there anymore. Okay, so now D, you've got to get with your K. You get your D to boost your immune system, because vitamin D comes from the sun. You don't get the sun in the winter, or if you're living in big cities all the time and never go outside, you don't get any sun, you don't make any vitamin D. D is essential for the thymus to be able to coordinate your immune system. So you've got to get your vitamin D. And then B and A. A is for eyes, and the whole B complex is for emotions and mood. Okay, so this is why we move this way for longer to short term, because if your mood's going down, look to your B vitamin levels, right? 3, 12, 6. There's a whole shitload of vitamin B, right? I take niacin at the level of 1 gram a day, and I get a flush out of it, and I really like that. I know I'm getting my vitamin B all flushed all through me, so I don't have a problem with that. A lot of people do. They just can't deal with the flushing. But you can get non-flushing niacin. But that only gives you one out of the complex that you need, so you need to look into others as well. But it's over here on this end. It's necessary for health and so on, but it's over here on this end because it affects emotions, which are much more ephemeral. And so it's down here in the shorter term. Now, quickly, got to get through the rest of this. I got a lot of stuff. So, I have material, machinery, all different kinds of shit showing up here for my Boscovich UFO challenge. And so we're going to get up to our next level. Have to spend several days setting it up, and I have other things I've got to do, but so I'll be delayed a number of days on that. Okay, so now C60. All right, so C60, insofar as the bacteria, viruses, and all of that kind of stuff, is very good because of the nature of it as an antioxidant, okay? And here's another thing about C60. C60 rehabilitates itself as an individual molecule after it's done its job of removing oxidative or radical oxidative oxygen stress waste from your cells. So it's sort of like, is a garbage man, it picks it up, takes it to where it needs to get dumped, and then it goes back looking for more. Unlike vitamin C does the same job, or glutathione, which basically is actually a form of vitamin C, or it has the same essential actions. Okay, those get used up. So a molecule of vitamin C bites the dust when it gets rid of that bad guy out of your system, unlike C60. So C60, to an extent, will relieve the pressure on the rest of your stuff and provide system support for the antioxidants, which makes it easier for vitamin C to be used in the other aspects of what it's needed for in your body. So you need vitamin C as intercellular glue to glue all your cells together. Inadequate vitamin C means that cancer can come on in and find its way in through one of the cellular linings, the intercellular areas, and establish itself, and that's what happens, right? And so, and then and it does that to get its own blood supply, and then you're off on sucking sugar and craving sugar, and you just can't help it. And then the next thing you know, you wake up one day and you know you died of cancer, and it is not pleasant. Believe me, there's a lot of different ways to die, and cancer is way down on my list. So C60 helps you, helps all the other systems by taking over a major level of load within your antioxidants. Now C60 also does some other stuff. It causes apoptosis. Apoptosis is where senescent cells that are not really contributing to your well-being are told, hey, you know, your time's done, step off. And they do. And so you get this weird effect after you've had C60 for a while, at least I noticed it, that sort of a thinning, a leaning effect of the cell structure. It feels good, you don't feel as polluted, and I'm old, I felt pretty polluted. I had a lot of years in me here, right? So anyway, so C60 is good at that level. It's also really good for macular degeneration. And I'm wearing glasses now, but they have no, it's like a 1.25, and the only reason I'm wearing them is because of the blue blocker to aid my eyes and you know, reduce the stress on and reduction of vitamin A in dealing with the blue radiation that we're exposed to so much. Anyway, so now on to the next one. The next one here is peptides. This is really for old people, okay? And this is peptides, let's say, feel 25 again. And I don't know if I feel 25 again. I know I feel young, I don't ache, I don't have problems. You know, I get up in the morning, I have energy. I actually have to still work at maintaining an early night, and I'll get into that in a second. And it's probably because of the peptides, so I have a big energy here. Peptides are signaling molecules. They're short chain little molecules, you know, 5 or 10 of them clumped together, nothing really big. And they're used as signaling molecules in your body. And you may have, you know, a particular system in your brain, all right? And let's just say that you've got a particular system in your brain and it's just sort of working on maybe sometimes a little bit. And what's going on may be that you don't have enough peptides, enough signaling molecules to tell that system to turn on 100%, or at all sometimes. And as soon as you get enough of those signaling molecules, you get these signals that rush through your body, the systems turn on, and you feel a shitload better, tons better, okay? And all of a sudden, stuff starts reacting a lot differently. Other systems themselves turn on because it's a cascade effect. And as you become older and you become beset with disease, maybe one of your aspects of disease might shut down 5 or 10 of your systems. And so now, peptides are not used to treat disease. They don't treat disease. That's not the point. They're a system support, okay? Without the level of, and peptides decrease. Once you're in your, like hormones, actually they used to call peptides hormones. But all hormones, basically, for women start decreasing at 29, for men at 36. And you just go. Now, women bitch and moan about that, but men decrease very much more rapidly after 40. That's why we die earlier, is because our rate of decrease in hormonal output and the signaling molecules, peptides, etc., we decrease in some of these things at almost twice the rate of women over time. So not fair, you know. Anyway, though, peptides may make you feel 25 again if you're not feeling 25 simply because of the lack of the signaling molecules. All right. But they're not a disease treatment. I don't want you to understand them that way. There are some diseases that do in fact respond because you're making your whole system better, not because of the individual peptide is reacting on that individual disease. So it's not an allopathic approach, okay? Much more holistic. Peptides originate and are refined and are understood today because of the work of the Russians, the Soviet Union was restricted from getting, because of sanctions, getting medicines of all different kinds that the allopaths in our country were working on, so they had to come up with something, so they came up with this approach of peptides. Now I buy all of my, anything that I want to make sure is non-GMO, especially something that's going to be a supplement or a medicine, I get from Russia, because their laws are so strict, you know, and they're non-GMO, and they're the best fucking quality you can buy, you know, and I really like my Ruski friends, and they're doing very good for the rest of us humans. So now here's the thing about peptides, okay? They're a support system molecule, so you don't take them continuously. It's not like Allopaths, where they want you to take that fucking chemical every damn day so they can get that money from you over and over and over again, year in and year out, and they don't care what happens to you. Peptides work this way. They come in these little, boxes. This one is for cartilage, okay? And it's all in Russian. There's a couple of little bits and pieces. You can get these on Amazon. You can get them on Livestream. Get them on a number of different places. They're expensive because they're worth it. All right, but here's how they work, just to save you some money. All right, so this one here is for cartilage. I'm taking it because I have to build up the cartilage in my hands, because my goal by the end of the year is an upside down muscle up. Okay, so I'm going to have to do some twisting action, and I want to make sure that all my ligaments and my ligaments and tendons and the cartilage system can take this, and my knees and stuff, right? I'm 67, you got to build these things up. I'm using peptides as body rebuilding after cancer. So I've gone through a number of them. And peptides, you can get, I'm going to go into how they work in a second, but you can get them for brain. That would be seralutin. Forgive the spelling. You can get them for adrenal. That would be glandocort. Glandocort. You get them for stomach, blood, liver. And these are just the ones I know of. Heart, eyes, just all different kinds of things. They're sliced and diced by category of system you want to support, okay? So if you want to support your eyes, you get visuolutin. If you want to support your brain, you get seralutin. And so on and so on and so on, right? And so they have them for all the different kinds of systems. Now, you use them this way. It's called 10 days sample. Okay, and so what you do, and this is where some people get, this is why I'm going into it, is because some people get, don't have an appropriate understanding. These boxes here, this is a month's supply. These boxes have 3 of these guys. That's a 10-day supply. You take 2 a day. Now, you can buy little tiny boxes that only have 1 of these and don't have all 3. The reason you do that is twofold. Because A, you may not need that system. You may say, oh, I need, you know, cartilage support. And you take a couple and nothing changes. I mean, you take it for 10 days. If you take it for 10 days and nothing changes, you're totally unaware of any positive response, you probably did not need that material in you. Your systems are all functioning, you know, as best they can, and whatever you think may be the issue may not relate to these underlying subsystems, and it may be some other thing that's intruding, and so you get at it a different way. So you buy the 10-day pack. If you don't get any benefit, you don't take any more. Now, if you do get benefit from it, you then buy a 30-day pack, take 2 out of that 30-day pack, and reserve 1 of these for 3 months later, because the idea is that you will, if it does work for you, you need to take for 30 days or tolerance. I'll get to that in a second. And then every 3 months, you take for 10 days. For 10 days. Okay, so, and then it just keeps you going at that same level throughout the year. Now, I say tolerance because you can get to the situation where you get saturated with it in 20 days. And by the time you get to the end of that 30 days, you may have had some, well, I won't say adverse, or it would be an extra reaction, okay? So, for instance, some people report that if they take 30 days initially loading on some of these things, like the ones for bones maybe, right, for bone marrow or something, very, very deep systemic things, and they didn't need it, that they may develop a couple of little hive reactions by the time they get to the end of the 30 days. But if you notice any of those coming on up, you just stop. Some of the peptides are extremely powerful and have to be understood as that. Okay, so seralutin is good for the brain. There's also others, including endolutin and a few others that work on like the pineal gland. But be advised, if you're in the woo-woo world and you want to, you know, decrystallize or petrify your pineal gland and get it all cleaned up and stuff, and you were to take endolutin, you may really fuck up your sleep, because you may just be under that impression that you need to do this and you don't really, and you take a endolutin for a couple of days, you might not sleep effectively for 2 weeks, simply because it is that powerful of a stimulant on the pineal gland and the rest of the body. And this is going to be an unpleasant period of time. So you really have to approach these with some adult sense of responsibility, right? Anyway, there's a lot of people out there that are reporting that they make them feel 25 again. I don't know how old those people are when they say this. I don't necessarily feel 25, but I sure as fuck don't feel 67. And I've taken the peptides and I'll continue to take them. As I say, I'm taking the cartilage ones now for building up for this upside down muscle up. A muscle up is where you pull up on like a chin up bar and then you go the rest of the way. So it's not just up like this and you force yourself up. I'm going to do it on the rings from upside down. Just my goal at the end of the year, right? I just like to set one of these kind of things at the end of the year. Anyway, so this is the end of video 1. This is all about this sort of thing. Always do your exercise. That's also anti-fragile. So this is how I think about it, right? Before I would do any of the thing, you know, Allopaths or any of that, I make sure that I've got my system support and all this other stuff set up. It's just, in my opinion, just seems wise to approach it that way. And there you go, guys. This is an overview of the stuff. Oh, coronavirus. Okay, so the coronavirus is not, if it turns out to be true that what I've read, that there's a 2% death rate, then that's staggering, okay? That's like huge, 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 huge. That's worse than the Spanish flu in 1918, right? That would be 195 million people globally that would die from it. Now, they make these projections based on little tiny samples at the beginning. And so you get a nursing home, you get the flu in there, and you know, you get 2% of the people in the nursing home that die, and they say, oh my God, the flu's got a 2% fatality rate, which is not the case, not in the general population in any event. Plus, you also, what I always watch is the average death age. So right now it's around 70 or 72, depending on which Chinese site you're reading. So it has yet to, the flu has yet, at least insofar as it's being reported, and they could be lying, who knows, it has yet to reach down into infants and all of those sorts of things, right, into the younger population. And that's usually what lowers the average death age, is that the flus have a tendency to kill off old people and young people. And so it makes that average death age come down towards the middle of the population density. And it may never, ever really be a danger to anybody in that middle population density. It's just going to be, you know, effective on either end of the range. We don't know. The Spanish flu was interesting because that was not the case. Yes, it did kill old people, and yes, it killed lots of young people, but it also really maintained its persistence of fatality percentage-wise through the population, no matter what the relative age was. And that's what made it so remarkable in all of our minds, even to this day, you know, even over 100 years later. If coronavirus ever got to that level, then, you know, we're basically in deep shit, and you need to get really serious about this, because there you're dealing with something that is extremely opportunistic. So if you have any weaknesses in your system, you may be very, very, very vulnerable to it in a way that we had not anticipated. But There's all kinds of things you can do. And also, by the way, there's peptides for immune system, for the thymus. Then, one last thing that's anti-fragile, okay? And that is our old friends, which I always go on about. So optimal vitamins, right? C60, but, okay, C60, all right. C60 is expensive because it's expensive to make the C60. Then you have to buy the highest quality oils. Then you have to have a little bit of scientific gear, some really good lab and cleanliness kind of facilities, and then you have to spend weeks getting the C60 mixed into the oil. So C60 is expensive. I don't see the price ever really coming down in a significant way, not for years and years and years. But you don't have to go that approach if it's a money issue, okay? I think it's good. I think it aids and will maybe extend people's lifespan. It certainly aids the whole system in a lot of different ways. But in the moment, right now, dealing with the influenza issues and so on, you can, if money is an issue, you can buy the most potent, powerful, anti-fragile substances on this planet. Get your vitamins first. They're a lot cheaper. Okay, get your vitamins first. But after you've done your vitamins, you can buy mushrooms. And I'm gonna give a shout out to Paul Stamets at Fungi Perfecti. Okay, and so he has very quality products. He's convinced me that my initial opinion was wrong based on the my understanding of the components of fruiting bodies versus the mycelial extraction process that he's got. His extraction process is actually superior to fruiting bodies. It yields more active ingredients in the mix in a wider range and at a greater depth. Okay, and I was wrong. I was inaccurate about my understanding of that. So now I have no problem with Paul Stamets. And sorry, I don't know that. I've got some of them around here, but they're in the house. I don't know the name of all of his products. I'd buy them at my health food store. I'd get them in the food co-op, or have them sent by Amazon. And they're but the ones you're going to want to deal with are Host Defense, I think it is. I think it's Host Defense. And his whole thing here is back up to our system support. Now, I happen to like mushroom teas, so I buy the high quality 4 and 10 level concentrations of turkey tail for immune system, reishi for all different kinds of things, cordyceps, various different teas, or various different powders, and then I'll just simply have them as tea. Okay, so, but I also have all of the Host Defense stuff as capsules, just so you don't have to worry about it if you got a heavy day ahead of you and you're not going to have that cup of reishi tea, and you want that extra boost to your immune system and stuff, then you can get your Host Defense caps and pop them in. All different kinds of people producing mushroom products. I only speak about what I know. There's a few brands I use, but I've known Paul since 1979, 78. So, I used to provide lab support for him. So when he was doing his master's or PhD study, I forget which. Maybe he's not a PhD, but his work there. Anyway, so I'm familiar with his products. I've used them for years, and he does really quality work, and it's local to my state, so I'm aware of it. But wherever you can get them, you should find that the mushrooms are going to be far less expensive than C60, although C60 is good. They're going to be more expensive than vitamins if you buy the right kind of vitamins. You don't want to spend great chunks of money for vitamins, because the idea, for instance, is to get enough vitamin C so that you're peeing out the excess, and then your system is saturated. Vitamin C and these kind of things are not expensive. So, but the mushrooms are like the middle tier there. You just don't do any better as a immune system support than going that route. especially Chinese medicine understanding of it all. So, okay, so I don't think there's anything else I wanted to say about this shit. And I've got another video to make here. So, anyway, I think that's it. So everybody be healthy, take personal responsibility. Government ain't gonna save your ass. Big pharma ain't gonna save your ass. Only people that are gonna do it are you. So time to get to it. Bye guys.